This is John McMichael, and you are with us today at the Greater Aiken Chamber of Commerce, and we have a great interview for you today. And welcome to Aiken Business Matters, and I want to welcome our two guests today. Robin Warren. How are you doing, Robin?
Oh, I'm well, thank you.
And Larry McHale. Larry, how are you?
Doing fine, John, doing fine.
It's good to have both of you here with us today. Larry, I'm going to start with you if that's all right, Robin.
Sure.
And Larry, we're going to be talking today with our viewers about SCORE and how important it is to really get a good foundation to start a new business, or to look at an existing business too. We can kind of incorporate that in there. But you have seminars that you conduct year-round, and this is actually the first seminar that you initiate for people to go through, is it not?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I was going to ask you to tell people a little bit about what SCORE is, but first, before we do that, I wanted to kind of brag on you folks just a little bit. But the Aiken SCORE, I know this is probably the second year in a row that you've received a number of national awards, but you have been designated as a national recognition award for, and I'll let you just tell everybody, but it's in the latest issue of the Chamber Update. So,
Well, yes, we're really kind of proud of that. We've got some 40 men and women that are part of the local SCORE chapter, and this is they've recognized us as the chapter of the year for small areas, small chapters. We don't obviously compete with New York, LA, and Chicago and Boston, but we've done well with this. We've been very successful in helping local businesses. We essentially do three things, John. We do the workshops, as we're going to talk about today. We also do one-on-one mentoring, where we'll help people who think they want to start a business, help them get started and talk it through them and make sure they have all the tools they need. And then also with existing businesses, we help them grow. So we'll serve as a advisory board of directors and help that company and just give them somebody to bounce some ideas off when they want to make some business decisions for growing, expanding, taking on a new product or new service. And most of our people are people like Robin and I who've had our own business, and we've also worked for other large corporations. So we've all been kind of around a little bit. Some have more experience in marketing, some in selling, some in IT, some in website design, some in finance. So we bring quite a bit of expertise to the table, and we do this under SCORE, which is part of the Small Business Administration. We do this at no charge, and we also do not charge for our services.
I think that's the most important thing that you've said so far, is the fact that there's no charge, and that's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but really it is when somebody's starting a new business or when they're having an existing business that's very new. Cost factors really play a big part in the survival ratio of the businesses. So
They do.
Go ahead, Larry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, so essentially, that's what SCORE does, and we all enjoy it. And what we're talking about today is one of the first workshops that we like to send our people to. And Robin's actually developed this workshop, so it's pretty good. It's kind of her baby, so to speak. And we do it 4 times a year because it's important. It's ones that we send our clients to.
Well, what we wanted to do today, and is that 3 of us have talked about this for some time, is that we want to do this. This is usually, Robin, is an hour-and-a-half class or seminar, and we're going to condense it into about a 30-minute segment and give them all the real nuts and bolts and the meat of it, and hopefully they'll come out to one of the full sessions and get the real benefit. But I think this will give anybody that's thinking about starting a new business, or someone who has an existing business is very early on in their business history, a lot of food for thought, because there is a lot of critical thinking that's needed as you approach business. Larry, give us some good character traits that a person needs to possess to go into business?
Well, when you go into business, you really have to be a jack of all trades. I mean, you have to have self-discipline, you have to have good communication skills, you have to be averse to risk. You know you're going to be taking a risk. You have to be financially responsible and have your money ready at hand. And you got to be really responsible. And what this class does is it brings up the kind of things that you should be aware of. And when you go through a SCORE mentoring session, there's things we expect you to do that Robin will get into later. But it sets the roadmap as to how you're going to really go.
Right. Well, we've talked about some of the character traits, but even above and beyond that, there are certain technical skills that somebody needs to bring into the mix as well.
Yes, that's true. You have to be computer literate, of course. You should be able to get around a computer all right. You should know basic financial statements, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow analysis, and that can be taught. You also have to have the ability to move ahead and take a chance, be a little aggressive, be a good listener. I mean, when people say you're going to have your own business, you don't have any bosses, well, you do. Every one of your customers is going to dictate to you how you're going to perform. So you've got to take care of them. And it's kind of, we try to set up to say, do you really fit into this kind of slot? Are you ready to go do it? Because here's the things your customers are going to expect of you. So can you do them? Right?
And you also have to have some skills in the area that you're going to go into. I can't open up an auto dealership if I don't know anything about automobiles.
Exactly, and that works well for financing too, because if you go to a banker and say, I need some money and I've got 30% down, you'll lend me 70%, he's going to ask you two main questions. One, have you ever ran a business before? And two is, what do you know about the business? I mean, I have an example I can give that a person I talked to one time years ago said that they wanted to purchase a sports bar. And I said, well, why? He says, well, I like to drink beer and I like to watch football. I said, well, that's fine. I know when I was 19 and 20, I wanted my own bar too, but a lot of guys did. I said, have you ever owned a business before? No. Have you ever been a bartender? No. Well, you're not bringing anything to the table, just a wish list. So you have to be realistic. I mean, if you've been in business before, and you've worked in an industry that you want to get into, that's great. Bankers like that, and you've got a higher chance of success. So you've got to bring something to the table. It can't be just, oh, that looks like something I think I'd like to do. You've got to be sure. You've got to be passionate about it, and you have to have experience in it.
Larry, what field were you in when you were in business?
I was in the computer field, and I was in packaging for most of my life, 25 years. And I thought packaging, well, that's kind of boring. Well, it turned out to be fantastic. There's all kinds of different packaging going on out there, and I really loved it. And I was successful in it. I started in computers, working with them, programming them as a systems analyst, repairing them. But then I get into more people type stuff, and I started getting into marketing and selling, and I enjoy that the most. So that's my background. That's the skill that I can bring when we talk to clients.
Good. Robin, how about you? What's
my background?
Yes, your background.
I worked for IBM for several years and always loved computers, and then started my own business 30 years ago. And for the last many, many years, I've been an independent web designer, working primarily with small business. And so I've helped hundreds of small businesses get started with internet sales or internet presence. And that's where this topic comes together for me.
And that particular area is probably one of the fastest growing marketing, sales, you name it. It covers a plethora of everything related to business today.
Fast growing and fast changing.
Yes, you have to stay right on top of it,
Absolutely.
don't you? You can't be content in that business.
That's
you
right.
have to be ever evolving in it. But Robin, you've amassed this program yourself, and you've kind of developed it, and you've worked it in stages and steps. I'm coming to you, and I'm coming to my first class, and I've got an idea for a new business. Larry, I have all those things that you talked about, and I have the product knowledge in that particular business. I've just been doing it for somebody else. Now I come to you, and where do I begin? What do I think about?
Well, there are 6 or 8 things that you
Okay.
really need to think about, and one of them is, what are you going to call the business?
Okay.
And it seems like a small item, but if you're successful, you probably want to have that business still in 20, 30 years using the same name.
Right.
So naming the business, you don't want to be too specific because you may want to expand into similar services. You don't want to limit yourself to Aiken. You may want to expand to the CSRA. You don't want to be too generic because then people don't know what you do. And when you do decide on a name, then you need to check with the state of South Carolina, maybe Georgia as well, see if the name's available. And I always tell people at the same time, check and see whether the domain name is available, because you want the branding for your business to be able to be used on the internet as well.
Well, I bet that's the toughest part right there.
Naming it
Right.
and getting all those things coordinated.
Yes.
Yeah, and I like the name to be easy to understand, easy to spell, not confusing, and say a little bit about the business.
Yeah.
So,
And be something that people can remember too.
yes, easy to remember.
Too many names sound like other names, and that's got to be a problem.
A lot of people use the word accurate or systems or advanced or things like that, and I think people have trouble remembering which was it.
Mm-hmm.
It confuses it with other names. And I think a lot of people like to do business with a person rather than a big company. A lot of people who go into business think they need to sound like a big company right off the start. And if your last name is Wolf, maybe you want to be Wolf Roofing,
Mm-hmm.
because people will remember that, and they might not remember, Aiken Advanced Roofing Surfaces, or
We want them
a
to
more
be
generic
yeah,
name.
you want them to be a howling success, so right.
Yeah. Yes, excellent.
So you think of something that makes people think about things.
That's
like
my
that.
line.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, Robbie, give us some things that they need to do other than coming up, and I guess we'd frame that as branding, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Yeah, you need the name, for branding and maybe a logo.
Right.
And most people who come to us know what the product or service is that they want to sell. That's the one thing they do know, is what their dream is and what they want to do. So you need to find out who's going to buy it, what kind of person. Is it a particular age? Is it men, just women? Is it pet owners? Is it homeowners? Is it a certain income bracket? What kind of people are you going to sell your service to? Are they going to buy it just once? Or is it something they use up and they have to buy again? What are you going to charge for it? What's your competition charge for it? Who is your competition? What are they selling? How are you different? We put a lot of emphasis on your competitive advantage. What makes your business unique?
Right. That really does bring an interesting point. How are you different? How are you unique? And how do you get people to focus in on that? Because that's that is really critical, because if you don't know that when you open the doors or start your business, then you're really lost.
It's true. A lot of people have a good idea, but they don't know. It's not the first time someone had a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
And if you're selling something, your competition's already out there
Right.
selling with a customer base. So unless it's a growing area, you're going to be stealing customers from your competition. So you have to be cheaper or better or faster or more available or greener, or you have to have something that appeals to the customer that you can use as your niche, that gets people to at least think about your product and then hopefully keep you.
It's something that we use, Robin and I and other presenters. Competitive advantage is used in almost every workshop that we have, because it's so important. And you can't say, well, I'm a bread shop, and what's your competitive advantage? Well, I have fresh bread. Well, do you think the other guy doesn't have fresh bread? Come on. Well, I deliver and they don't. Okay, that's a possible competitive advantage. But you really have to get that nailed down, and your employees should know what your competitive advantage is and what is your mission, how are you going to project that. But you're absolutely right, John. It's a very important part of all our workshops, is that our clients understand what it means.
Yeah. Well, I've been involved in several small businesses over the years and worked with a number of small businesses in a corporate capacity. And one thing that really always amazed me is you'd come back, I'd be on some trips and meeting some of my clients around a particular state, and I'd come back and I'd think about what they were doing and whether they were meeting the objectives that we required of them because they were providing a service that we provided to them. And it all comes down to one thing. Every business is like all of us. The three of us, that we all have a different personality. And a business has a different personality. And that is really the start of being able to define yourself and make your differential, is that you make it so that people want to come to you because they like doing business with you. Mm-hmm. They enjoy doing business with you. And I always felt, maybe I'm wrong, you can kind of give me some insight. You can correct me on air so that we can, give people an idea that everybody needs correction. But I've always felt like if you start with the very basics, and that's product knowledge, and you start with one key ingredient that people feel wanted and appreciated when they do business with you, that you've created a huge sign that out front that says, we're open for business, we welcome you, and we want your business. And you don't always get that feeling when you deal with businesses.
And someone who comes into starting a business with a product knowledge may not realize how important those things are. The instructor we had giving a workshop last week, one of the things he kept saying was, know, like, trust. Know, like, trust. Mm-hmm. People have to know about you, and that's marketing. People have to know you're there, know about you, and they have to like you. And that could be the personality of your office space or your store or your website, the feeling, the emotional reaction that people have to however you present your product. And if they like that and they buy it, the trust, I think, is something you build over time. It's customer service. Mm-hmm. But knowing about you, another thing we emphasize is being able to describe your business in 30 seconds. Do the elevator speech. Right. So if you're in front of your best prospect and you have 30 seconds to describe your business, it just rolls off your tongue because you're so used to that. And a lot of people stumble over that at first. It's something to practice and then use at chamber events or business networking anytime you have the opportunity. So we had a couple little examples. I'll probably stumble over this because it's not my own business. But like my business is Daisy Daycare. We provide daycare for children ages 2 through 12, weekdays during the week, after school, and also weekends and evenings. See, that's the competitive advantage, is weekends and evenings. Right. Might be a competitive advantage over someone else, but you know now what I do now, right? Very short description. And Larry, I think you have one.
I have one from a nonprofit that I really like that I talk about when we do another workshop. And it's, the name of the company is Worldwide Water. And it's Worldwide Water brings pure fresh water to undeveloped countries. Mm-hmm. Bang, boom, you know exactly what we do. Mm-hmm. It's not we've read some that you read it all and it's 5-6 sentences, you don't know what the heck the guy's making or the woman's services or what. And this helps our shareholders, it helps us. Well, what about me, the consumer? What are you doing for me? Tell me what you're doing. Industry's a bad word because industry could be anything. Right. Systems could be anything.
Marketing is something that's critical to any business, and I know a new business is not going to have a marketing budget per se, so they have to do the right kind of things to make themselves available. But what you just talked about, being out there networking, is a huge thing.
That's
huge
one way
part
to
of
market.
It. Yeah.
And we talk about several ways. There's newspaper advertising and
Right.
there are traditional billboards and things like that. But we have some small clients, they have a couple of t-shirts printed up with a logo and the name of the business, and it's just a conversation starter. And they wear the t-shirt, and one by one, people ask questions and they answer them. And very often people think they have to have a website, right, for starters, to sell anything. And that's not always the case. You can actually build your brand and build name recognition and a customer base on the internet now without a website. A website can really distract a business owner from producing the product or the service that they want to produce.
Right. How about social media?
Social media depends on the demographic, who
Mhm.
what you're selling, who you're selling it to, who's going to buy it, who's online when. Certainly, Facebook is great if you're selling retail.
Right.
If you can build a buzz about your product and people feel strongly enough that they'll share it with other people. If you're a business-to-business type of business, B2B, professional service, LinkedIn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
LinkedIn is the way to go. Yeah.
I agree. Those are two things that come to mind when people talk about networking to me, and I think you're exactly right that it just depends on what your focus is and who your client is. But you can't market if you don't know what you're doing and who your client is. Like you said, you got to know your demographics, and if you don't know that,
You got to know where do they go to get their
Exactly,
social
exactly,
information?
yeah.
And
What platform are they using?
who's your competition?
What's your competition using? How are
Yeah.
they marketing? There's one other thing that's really important I want to be sure we get in
Yeah.
is the business structure.
Okay.
We do talk about partnership versus sole proprietorship versus corporation, S corporation, C corporation. But almost all of our clients, all of the businesses now register as an LLC. And you can actually register the name of the business and as an LLC in either South Carolina or Georgia for around $200. So
Boy,
that's
that's
some of the
really
information that we have on the website for
Yeah.
people to
That's
have those links.
That's pretty reasonable because I remember years ago it was a lot more than that.
Well, that's if you do it yourself online.
Yes.
You still can go to a good attorney and you can get it done. You might pay a little bit more than that too. So it depends on how you set up the LLC. Do you have a partnership within it? That makes things complicated because you have to put in the how do we handle a change in ownership? If I leave, you leave, how much money do we put into it? It's good to get an attorney involved with that because they'll bring up those questions you didn't
Certainly.
think of.
And then, another aspect of it is insurance, being able to protect yourself and your clients for whatever you may be doing. So do you go through that with them in this, or is that another
Little bit.
course?
We mentioned that here. It's probably more part of the business plan course because that's an expense item.
Sure.
But that's something we actually working into that. We also then go over some basic financials in the Are You Thinking of Starting a Business workshop.
Yeah.
And so I think
When we're going into the business plan.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Larry, if
well-
you
talk about
would.
that.
Yeah, to wrap up with that, we have another course, we run it 4 times a year, it's called How to Develop a Business Plan. And this is for people who have been through all these other courses and they're sure they want to do it, they've got their financing plan, they know what they have, how to get the money they need, or they've already have the money. But we set up the whole how to develop business plan structure by starting with the executive summary, which is a nutshell of an expanded elevator speech saying, here's who I am, and here's who my customers are, and here's what I'm going to charge them, and here's what I'm selling, and and how I'm going to do it. And then we get into a business description. What is an LLC or whatever? What are the products? Then we get into what are the products or services you're having. And then marketing, how you're going to market to those products and services. Again, where are your customers going to be looking? And then there's the finances. And again, basically the balance sheet, income statement, cash flow. Those are the things that an investor or a banker are going to ask for. So we go through those. And we have many other types of resources that will help you go through those things. But we take them through one step at a time. We actually have the people that attend the workshop actually build a business plan with a model that we have. And it always comes out, everybody always does it different, but it's good to see how people do stuff and how they promote things. And it you give 3 people work on the executive summary, 3 work on product description, 3 the finance, and it really comes out pretty good. But we run that 4 times a year too, and it's always heavily attended.
Well, it's practical experience, and I think everybody, when you're by yourself doing things, you're either too critical of what you're doing, or you're not critical enough. Very seldom are you right on target. So having others around you to help give you some guidance is a
and
great thing.
You have to really understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, and realize the weakness isn't a negative thing. You can always purchase that. If you want somebody to handle your books for you for $200-300 a month, somebody will do that for you. And they should point out the things, saying to keep an eye on this, keep an eye on that. You don't be afraid of it. Get involved with it.
You mentioned something early on, Larry, when we talk about traits, and it's being the type of individual that is not afraid to take a chance. I talk to many people that are very successful in business that over the years they laugh when I say it must be great to be so successful, and they said, you don't know how many unsuccessful things I've done to get to a successful point. And I think people are afraid to make that thing when it's just part of a building block of you learn from your mistakes.
Exactly.
And you put those, you learn from them, and I use the word learn, and you take those lessons learned and you move them to the next level as you prepare to do something different or go back and retool what you've done before. And I know that's one of the things that y'all emphasize, is that never be afraid to make a change in what you're doing if you see what you're doing is not effective.
Not only that, we also want to make sure that people don't go into business if they're not prepared, if they haven't thought things through. We like to see a business plan before people take the leap and quit a full-time job and take a chance. So we do also talk about, what's your fallback plan? If everything goes wrong, how are you going to succeed? How are you going to survive? That's important too. But the business plan forces people to put their ideas in writing, even if they don't need financing. It's good to commit it to paper and have thought it through well enough. And then we like to meet with, that's what our mentors do. We meet with people one-on-one and look over things, because it's always a good idea to have someone else's, fresh set of eyes looking at a business plan.
And I know that you, the things that you do, you help people so that they can build in safety nets as they get ready to start businesses, because everybody's not ready to jump out there, quit their job, and start something fresh. That many people do it part-time or as in association with a full-time job, and get everything in order, and then gradually start implementing the new business, and then kind of change the direction.
We've actually got brochures on that.
Yeah.
This lets you keep working as you move into the new business and take it up a little at a time. But you should have enough, you're right, you should have enough financial background to go through those first 5 or 6 months when things are a little bit slow. But you put milestones out and you check the milestones. If you're attaining them, then things are going good. If they're not, find out why. But learn from it. If it gets really bad, stop, go to work for somebody else, get a clear head, come back, do it again. I started 3 businesses. The first 2, I ended up not doing it because it was wrong. And I saved money by not doing it. And it was because I hadn't worked in retail before. I was business in business. And also, I had never owned a business. But then the other one was packaging, which I knew, plus I had the customers. I knew that. It was very easy for me to transfer over to being a rep handling packaging, because I knew it. The first 2 times was just, I think I'd like to do this. When I did the market research and found out that nobody was going to buy this stuff, that, I thought croissants was a good thing. It was a new French thing. People were eating bread. And I thought ladies were going to lease wedding gowns. I was wrong, because when I did my research, they said, I'm not going to wear that if somebody else wore it. So just a bad idea, but I researched it, didn't do it, and then when I was ready, I get into one. So for me, it was the 3rd time.
Okay.
Before we're finished, I just want to mention we have resources available on the SCORE website, greateraiken.score.org.
It is I have been there, visited there, and looked at it with potential new businesses to let them see what was available, because everybody thinks they have to pay money to have a consultant to do things, and that's not always the case, especially not when SCORE is involved. Like you said earlier, both of you said, it's a free service, but it's a great service.
Also, in we have a section called Workshops and Resources, and the notes, the handouts for our for all of our courses are available online, and there are all kinds of links that help people get started in business in the handout for starting a business.
Well, our great producer, I know, will make sure that information that James is always make sure that we have all the available information on contacts and things like that. As we kind of wrap it up a little bit, I want to thank both of you for spending time to help us, because I know that it's going to help this community if they take the time to think about what they're doing. And it's a great time right now for entrepreneurs to go out there and explore. It seems like there's just a very openness within the business community countrywide right now for entrepreneurism and for new businesses, and it's just great. I had an economics professor. He left me with this one thought, and I've always remembered it, and I like to say it because it's very true. But they said, do what you like and like what you do. And you can't start a business unless you can say both of those things with a very positive message.
Very true.
You really
Yeah.
have to like it, because there are a lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into every business. And there are great days and there are not so great days, but you provide a source and a resource for people when they feel overwhelmed or underwhelmed, whatever the case may be, that they have a source that they can go to help them to do some critical thinking, to come out of it and understand maybe some of the things they need to go back and rethink or redo, or start over, whatever the case may be. But you and the entire SCORE group here in Aiken are to be commended for all the time and effort you put into it. And I know personally some businesses that are very successful in Aiken today that have come through SCORE training, and many of them still come back to SCORE to, like you said, that they kind of look at SCORE as their board of directors and gives them direction as they move forward. But Larry, thank you so much. Robin, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And I hope we can do this again with some other things that you teach that we can
We'd
bring
be
to our
happy to.
group.
Yeah.
Be happy
But
to.
I think this has been very worthwhile, and you have given our audience a lot of things to think about. Many people that are sitting out there, and age really doesn't play a part in it. There are people that start new businesses at all ages, people young and young at heart, we'll say that.
Exactly.
So
Sure.
thank y'all again.
All
Larry,
right.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Robin, excuse me for reaching
Thank
across.
you.
But thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for joining us today on Aiken Business Matters. And again, all the information that we've talked about is available on the SCORE website. These are great people that have a great message that they want to share with our people in the business community. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Aiken Business Matters.